The night before we were supposed to sign the marriage license, I video called my boyfriend. A woman's long hair flicked across the frame for half a second. I drove straight to his house. Chase's secretary was in pajamas, sitting at the table making dumplings with his mother. When I confronted him, Chase was annoyed. He frowned and said they were just colleagues. Told me not to overthink it. His parents pulled long faces, scolding me for ruining etiquette and warned me not to sabotage the auspicious wedding next month. The next month, I got married right on schedule. Only the groom wasn't him. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from in the US. When that slap exploded across my face, time seemed to freeze. I stared at the man in front of me, unable to overlay this violent image onto the gentle boyfriend I remembered. The fire extinguisher hit the floor with a deafening clang. Chase's hand hovered awkwardly in midair. Then he lowered it, sheepish. Hannah, I just lost control. I swear it wasn't intentional. Chase stammered, guilt flickering in his voice. It's not all on me. You burst in and started smashing stuff first. Chase reached for my hand. I flung it off without hesitation. His parents stood nearby, saying nothing, as if none of this concerned them. Dad shoved the door open and saw my swollen cheek. Chase beside me, and the two parents still mute. In the living room, a young woman in pajamas hugged herself, watching with cold detachment, enjoying the show. At that moment, I felt tossed into a circus cage, a monkey on display. Humiliated, I replayed every step with Chase, from teenage uniforms to a snow-white wedding gown. I'd watched him build his empire from nothing. When Chase couldn't afford street vendor buns, I was there. While Chase studied abroad, I stayed home without complaint, looking after his aging parents. When his father's cancer turned terminal, I practically lived at the hospital, shuttling lab reports, hunting down doctors. Nurses and other patients assumed I was their real daughter. Yet the same couple who once swore they'd skin Chase alive if he ever hurt me now stood silent, watching their son strike me. Indifferent. Shame flooded me. I bit my lips so hard I tasted iron to keep from crying. The instant Dad walked in, strength returned, safety gave me courage. I stepped up to Chase. Under his hopeful gaze, I raised my knee and rammed it between his legs. He crumpled, gasping. I pounced, grabbed two fistfuls of his hair and slapped him left, right, left, unloading every ounce of humiliation and rage. Only then did Mr. and Mrs. Sawyer spring to life, shrieking, trying to pull me off. Dad blocked them, lifting Mr. Sawyer by the collar, glaring down at him. Your son hit my daughter. His voice was arctic. Your whole damn family ganged up on my little girl. Each word dripped fury. Years of farm labor had left Dad solid muscle. Chemo had reduced Mr. Sawyer to skin and bones. He averted his eyes, muttering that it was all a misunderstanding. Let the kids sort it out themselves. Dad wasn't buying it. He tossed the man aside, then wrapped an arm around me, yanking the still cowering Chase to his feet. You hit Hannah. It sounded half question, half verdict, because without waiting for an answer Dad punched him square in the eye, turning it eggplant purple. Mrs. Sawyer howled, lunging at Dad. I'll call the cops. Assault. I wiped snot and tears from my face, strode to the security door and flung it open. Neighbors packed the hallway, buzzing about the Sawyer family drama. Chase's face twisted in fury, but my kick had done real damage. He stood rooted, face scarlet. Jade tried to duck into the bedroom, but I hauled her to the doorway by her collar. Neighbors, look close. This is my boyfriend of 10 years and the secretary, who's practically family. We were signing the license tomorrow, yet tonight his fiancé seems to have changed. My voice shook with rage. Chase, planning to marry us both. Chase turned crimson, stammering nonsense. Jade, standing amid the wreckage, wished the floor would swallow her. Mr. and Mrs. Sawyer shouted that I was deranged, disgracing them before I'd even married in. Dad spat on the floor. Marry in. Dream on. My daughter can rot at home before she joins this cesspool. Chase steadied his face and tried again. Uncle, Hannah, it's a mistake. Jade's just a colleague. She felt down, so I invited her over. Watching him stay calm, I snorted. Bad day equals pajama party at your place. If she ever threatens suicide, are you and your dad planning to comfort her in bed too? Mrs. Sawyer stamped her foot, shrieking about my filthy mouth. Jade switched on the teary act. Hannah, don't project your insecurity onto us. Mrs. Sawyer asked me to dinner. How does that prove Chase doesn't love you? Snide little witch. Too busy punishing the man. I'd almost forgotten her. I'm half a head taller. I grabbed her hair and shoved her face into the bowl of vegetable filling. You love dumplings. Then eat your fill. Chase flinched but stayed frozen, not daring to rescue his secretary. When I was sure her head was thoroughly coated, I appended the flour sack over her, dusting her like a pastry. I strode to the bedroom, dragged out the bridal portraits we'd shot 2 days earlier, and hurled them to the floor. In front of everyone I swung the hydrant wrench and smashed the frames to splinters. Chase, weird done. I cried the whole drive home, working through an entire box of tissues. Dad kept one hand on the wheel, passing me his thermos. Drink, catch your breath, then bawl if you need. Enough, sweetheart. A blessed girl doesn't enter a cursed house, he said. I always knew that punk wasn't worth it. Next time Dad will find you a good one. Between hiccups I sobbed. Everyone in town has invitations. They'll know I got dumped. So humiliating. Dad laughed it off. What's shameful? Breaking up is normal for you kids. If this one's wrong, we swap. Look at Jen down the road. 2 divorces and nobody blinks. You remember Mason, right? Kid you played with. He asked about you when he visited last month. Nice guy. Runs his own design studio now. Rakes in money. And we watched him grow up. I blew my nose on the last tissue and gulped water. Dad, I'm done with romance. Quit talking nonsense. Love stinks. Marriage stinks. I'll stay home and care for you in old age. Who says marriage stinks? If it's that bad, why do people walk down the aisle twice? No matter what, keep moving forward. We can't control others. We just keep our own conscience clean. Run into trash. Treat it like a fart. Let it go. Serious as a firing squad. Hardly. A roadside grill was skewering lamb. Dad pulled over, buying a fat bundle wrapped in foil and handed it to me. Tears still pooling. I bit off a huge mouthful. After returning from abroad, Chase refused hot pot or barbecue, junk food. He said, home cooking and clean eating only. I followed along, taste buds bored, sneaking out for forbidden snacks. When he smelled grease on me, he recoiled, telling me to keep my distance. Hannah, can you ditch your peasant mindset? Is garbage really that addictive? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Back in college we'd had no money. We budgeted every cent, living for our monthly junk feast treat. He was right. I am a junk addict. Dad was also right. People move forward, even if Chase had committed a capital crime. I couldn't be judge and executioner, but letting go isn't easy. I burned every gift, every sappy love letter we'd exchanged. As the flames rose, I blocked the entire Sawyer clan on every app. Hovering over Jade's profile picture, I hesitated. I asked her to meet. She showed up in barely their clothes, a Chanel bag on her shoulder, one I'd seen on Chase's shopping history. I'd thought it was my surprise gift. I'd scolded him for splurging while secretly floating on air, but Chase frowned and told me, these are gifts for our business partners. We're not worthy of carrying something that expensive yet. Once I make real money, I'll buy you a whole room of Hermes. Now that same bag was hanging from Jade's shoulder. When I stared at it in silence, Jade gave a light laugh, took it off, and proudly held it out for me to see. Chase gave it to me for my birthday. I'd long suspected the two of them. After Chase came back from overseas, he sold his family's old house to fund his startup. And I'd said, let me help. Back then his company needed a secretary. Secretary really meant doing everything in a tiny startup. Chase turned me down, stroking my hair like I was a kitten. Hannah, the job isn't just running the office. You'd have to drink with clients, chase purchase orders. You're not cut out for it. At the time I thought he was being sweet, worried his income was too shaky to support me. Jade showed up right at that moment, pretty and slick. She could charm the peel off an apple. She'd only finished high school, but she knew the business cold and could outdrink men twice her size at banquets. Once she had the workflow down, Chase exhaled like he'd been underwater for weeks. After that, days passed when I couldn't reach him at all, and nights when he never came home. A couple of times I called late and a syrupy female voice answered. Jade would murmur gently, Chase had too much to drink. He's sleeping at the office tonight. I fought with Chase, cried, accused, so he dragged me to the office and pulled up the security feed to prove he'd stayed inside all night. I ended up feeling I'd wronged him. He was out there grinding while I let suspicion poison everything. Turns out a woman's intuition is never baseless. I set my coffee down. When, on the Denver trip, we didn't do much. Chase was drinking every night, so the sex was just SOSO. And you could still watch him marry somebody else. Jade lifted a shoulder. But he can't function without me. Every contract crosses my desk. He honestly didn't plan to break up with you. He said your family did his a favor. So after we started, he kept me at arm's length for a while. But the circle he runs in, keep the wife at home and the flags flying outside. Sooner or later, he joined the club. On all those nights he didn't pick up. He was in my bed. Even if I never get the title, the gifts he gives me are the most expensive. You've been with him for years. Add up everything he bought you and it still won't match this bag. Men keep a running balance. I bring in profit, so I've earned Chanel. You don't. I'm not scared you'll despise me. Hannah, I left home at 14. Dirt poor. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. When I still said nothing, Jade delivered the sentence that stripped me bare. When you called, didn't you ever hear anything odd in the background? He likes the comfort you give, but adrenaline is addictive. The conversation felt like being paraded naked through the street. Every eye on my humiliation. I wasn't as capable as she was. I couldn't line his pockets. And I wasn't as exciting. Ignoring the stares of everyone in the cafe, I poured my full iced Americano over Jade's head. You two deserve each other. Please stay in your toxic little bubble and stop poisoning the rest of us. After I left Jade, I burrowed under my quilt for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Dad came in with food and found me lying like a corpse. Hair an oily bird's nest. The trays from the previous days sat untouched on the desk. Taking in my zombie face, Dad yanked the duvet off. A little setback and you collapse. When your mom went off to work, I didn't whine. I raised you solo. Poop to ponytail. Every girl gets dumped. Look at the Jones daughter next town over, 180 pounds. Suitors lining up daily. You're prettier. You'll marry fine. If nobody wants you, Dad will keep you fed forever. Get up and square your shoulders. The room was chilly. I shivered in thin pajamas. Meeting Dad's stare, I obediently pulled on my padded coat. I muttered through a mouthful of toothpaste. Dad, I'm grown. Don't rip my blanket off. A girl needs privacy. He nodded solemnly. Heard that story. Lee family had a daughter, so Dad ran away from home. Couple years ago she finally married. They tracked him down and dragged him back. Dad, I stomped, foam dribbling down my chin. He cackled, told me to finish breakfast, then go soak in a bath. Scrub the bad luck off. If we're done with that clown, we live twice as loud. I gave a half-hearted nod. Our bloodline seemed cursed to lone wolf it. Mom ditched Dad for cross-border trade when I was 1, swooping back only a handful of times in 20 years. She always arrived in a hurry, left in a blur. As a kid I'd bawl, clinging to her legs. Dad stayed calm. Be good, Hannah. Mom's earning money for pretty dresses. Maybe because of Mom, I'm a hopeless romantic, desperate for a complete home of my own. One day before the license appointment, I got crowned with the greenest hat in history. Dad watched me eat, only letting me leave the table after I demolished 2 giant buns. Quit the job, kiddo. Come home. Dad's got you. I swallowed the last spoonful of porridge. If I quit, what'll you support me with? Not long after Chase went abroad, his father was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and Mrs. Sawyer was frail. To keep Chase from worrying across the ocean, I resigned from the government job I'd just landed, moved back to our hometown in Ohio, and found a job near his parents. Private firms are brutal. Because of his dad's chemo, I asked for leave every other week, then worked past midnight to catch up. When colleagues pried, I told them straight, I'm taking my boyfriend's father for chemo. The office coworkers cooed, finally a living, breathing fairy tale martyr. For years of side eyes and snide remarks, I took them all. Dad stood, rummaged the East Room cabinet, and produced a passbook. The balance nearly snapped my jaw. Dad, did you rob a bank? Watch your mouth. The farm plots boomed the last few years. Crops piled into cash. Your mom's gem game is strong. She's been hustling stones in Arizona. Every cent here is her dowry gift to you. She made me swear not to tell. Worried you'd stop striving if you knew we were loaded. Your mom and I, who knows if we were ever meant to be husband and wife. She's got sky-high pride and the brains to match. Refused to stick to farming. Stormed off to make her fortune. Luck rode her. She stacked paper. I didn't drag her down. Raised you so she never had to look back. Plenty of nights I thought she'd never come home. Yet we never divorced. She said she'd given me a daughter, so her chair at the table stays set. Dad waved the passbook. Drunk on the saga of their decades of quarrels and patch-ups. I felt dizzy. I tested the waters. So, how loaded are we? Enough to keep you fed for life. Enough to buy me a Mercedes-Benz. Dad pondered. Depends on your behavior. Truth is, I didn't crave the Benz. Chase once sketched a future where, once he cleared $1 million a year, he'd buy me one. He drove a BMW himself. I'm no inspirational heroine who slashes her way to riches to slap the cat in the face. If Mom and Dad could swing it, that worked too. I'm easy. I just wanted to announce, to strangers, to myself, that the car he dangled like a prophecy could be handed to me by my parents on a random Tuesday. If anyone can do it, why must it be him? Dad handed me a card, spend whatever, whenever. I fired up his clunky pickup, clattering all the way to the town center. The spa attendant scrubbed with the force of a tiger, and under her scouring my spirit inflated like a new balloon, blow-drying my hair. I caught my reflection, eyes hollow, twin black half-moons sagging beneath, frizz shooting off my scalp. Years of corporate servitude had curved my spine. I'm only 27. How did I age so fast? My phone rang. Caller ID, Mom. Her last call had been months ago. Months had slipped by. Hearing her voice, I sniffed hard. Mom hadn't come home in years. Anything involving her still felt awkward. Foreign. She seemed to be on the street. Car horns bleated behind her. Hannah, are you okay? For once she sounded tentative, almost ingratiating. I just flew back from Arizona. My phone only got Dad's message. She asked nothing else, only rushed to explain why she hadn't called at once. I burst into loud, ugly tears. A woman doing business on the border for 20 years? Was it hardship that polished her? The sound of my sobbing panicked her. Hannah, sweetheart, stop crying. I'm right here. I sniffled. Mom, I miss you. Dad told me we're okay, now, that you've been saving. Come home. Mom's end went silent. My stomach knotted. Next to her grit, I felt like a failure. A few seconds later, she answered. Hannah, give me a month. Once I move the last of the gems, I'll come back to you too. I stared at my account balance, then splurged on a few pretty outfits. Even got myself a trendy blowout. Bags in hand, I reached the yard full of clucking chickens and flipping fish and felt suddenly shy. Dad, you didn't have to go overboard. I'm not that hungry. Dad rolled his eyes. It's not for you. We've got company. I blinked, then spotted a guy in black biting into a cucumber. Our eyes locked. The cucumber froze mid-chew. He swallowed fast, swaggered over. Hannah, remember me. It's Mason. The Mason Dad wanted me to meet. He and Dad were old friends. We used to play together when we were kids. 3 years older. He'd always been a head taller. Whenever the neighborhood games turned rough, he shielded me. Then Uncle Gray opened a restaurant in the city and moved away with him. Business boomed. And Dad's farm got steady orders. For a while we still shared holiday meals. Mason rattling off school gossip. After senior year, he went abroad. We hadn't seen each other since. Now he towered over me. Paler, almost luminous. Girls blossom at 18, they say, but the same clearly applied to him. The kid who once played in the dirt had become lean, sharp-browed, bright-eyed. His shirt sleeves were carelessly rolled. Sanskrit letters inked around one wrist. Beneath the open collar, collarbones cut deep shadows. The silence felt heavy. I dropped my gaze. Voice tiny. Hey, long time, Mason. He grinned and ruffled my hair. I've been here loads. First time I catch the famous Hannah. Busy bee. Ignoring my blush, he pulled me onto a low stool, cracking sunflower seeds while recounting weird tales from overseas. Every story ended with, tell me that's not nuts. I stared, then burst out laughing. Dad fake crooned. My princess hasn't laughed in ages. Mason doubled over. Mortified, I bit my cucumber, then laughed till my sides hurt. You still talk non-stop, just like when we were kids. I told him. He rolled his eyes. Correction, I'm exactly the same kid. Dad made a call. Soon Uncle Gray and Aunt Gray arrived. Their mini empire had grown, 3 glitzy 3-story restaurants. Tables packed, wine flowing, tipsy. I asked Mason, why not take over the family place? What does your studio even design? He opened his phone, sketch after sketch of wedding gowns. It's simple. I draw dresses. Restaurants bore me. If someone walks down the aisle in love wearing my design, how cool is that? Aunt Gray cut in. We line up dates. He refuses. Says he's waiting for love. I blurted. You've never dated. Uncle Gray swapped a knowing look with Dad. Kid's heart's been taken. I nodded, wondering who had that kind of grip on him. After they left, Dad cornered me. So, what do you think? About what? Mason. Good kid. Huh. Dad, didn't you hear? He's stuck on someone. Dad glared like I'd flunked math. You really are dense. I shrugged, then stopped pushing the dummy to marry. How could he want me? Rich air, rising talent, unfairly handsome. He could pick a supermodel by snapping his fingers. But Dad beamed whenever he mentioned Mason. That night Mason texted me a number. Save it. Call me. I rang his text line. He hung up. I dialed the number instead. Hey, is this Hannah? Yeah. Click. Dead again. Then a voice call buzzed. Perfect. Now I've got your digits. Let's stick to this app. Free minutes. He kept me on the line 2 hours until I was slurring with sleep. Only when I started fumbling words did he let me go. See you at dawn. He chirped. I'm taking you to breakfast. I mumbled agreement. Morning. Mason jogging laps in our yard. Dad beaming over takeout. Up and at M. Early bird. Mason called. I yawned. Early worm gets eaten. They pushed me through a wash. I reached for mascara. Mason tugged me to the car. Forget it. None of that stuff is high-end anyway. Bad for your skin. Besides, bare face is cute. He drove like he was born to it. I rode shotgun nibbling crab roe soup dumplings he'd brought. So tender I hated swallowing. Fancy Ferrari. Yet I couldn't find the tissue box. He noticed. Wiped my mouth without missing a beat. I figured we'd hit his family restaurant. Instead we parked at Riverside. Breakfast settled. Let's walk it off. He marched me to Chanel. The clerk, scenting commission, painted me a full face. When the bill hit 5 digits I tugged his sleeve. Dad can reimburse this. Right. Think twice. Mason's I twitched. Are you for real? I tried outfit after outfit. Everyone got an automatic gorgeous. Each time I stepped out, the pieces were already bagged. Trash the old dress. Wear this one. Ma'am. Cutter. Snip the tag. Under the shopper's stares I wanted to vanish. Mason Mason, you look like some tycoon keeping a stray teenager. Inside the restaurant, I thanked the makeover gods, because Chase's family and Jade were waiting at the central table. Seeing my glow up and Mason beside me, Chase strode over, eyes stormy. Hannah, what happened to you? I laughed in fury. To a version you can't afford. He held my gaze. You're flaunting some guy just to spite me. I told you, Jade and I are colleagues. Give it a week. Let you cool down. This is low. Jade watched like it was Netflix. I burst out laughing. 8 years flushed like a joke. Still shameless. Chase, you two were colleagues without a stitch on. Mason slid between us, shoving Chase back. Buddy, the Victorian era's over. No mistresses allowed. Caught red-handed and still poker-faced. Impressive thickness. Mrs. Sawyer darted over to shield her prince. Never pegged you for this. Hannah, no wonder my boy dumped you. Who could guard against you? She looked older. Chemo shuttles will do that. Mason snorted. You running a monarchy. Last I heard only royal guards were needed. Furious, she snapped. Who are you to butt in? Jade added tea leaf sweetness. Hannah's charming. But let's not smear innocent people. Mason spread his arms. Her fiancé, one of many in line. The lobby circled with onlookers. I raised my phone. Tapped play. A voice blared. Chase drinks every night, so average. All those evenings he didn't pick up. He was in my bed. You've stuck with him for years, but everything he ever gave you isn't worth this one bag, is it? They all froze, staring at me in shock. Jade hadn't expected me to record. Chase's face flushed red, then drained white. Mason clicked his tongue and asked the crowd loudly, doesn't this count as selling? She took the goods. Pretty pricey ones. I rolled my eyes. Chase, I was with you 8 years. You decided I wasn't worth those gifts. But after a few days with someone else, he's already given me more than you did in 8. When I was with you, I couldn't even bring myself to buy $400 shoes. You said your living expenses were tight, that you needed startup capital. So I handed over half my salary and survived on cheap meals in a shared flat. When your dad had surgery, I camped in the hospital for 2 days straight, afraid to close my eyes, taking leave every day to sit with him through chemo, just so you could worry a little less. And this is how you repay me. Under the onlookers pointing fingers, Chase had nothing to say. A waiter politely stepped up and asked them to leave. The bill would be refunded later. Mrs. Sawyer glared. On what grounds? We got here first. If anyone leaves, it's them. Mason swaggered to the register, tossed a few bills on the floor. On the grounds that I'm the owner's son. Take your refund and scram. And don't ever come back. Manager, call every server over. Memorize these faces. If they dare set foot inside again, set the dog on them. Chase hesitated at the door, eyes complicated, unwilling to go. Mason actually had someone lead a huge black dog from the backyard. The dog fixed its gaze on Chase, growling low, hackles up. They bolted in terror, almost wetting themselves. Back in the private room, everything felt surreal. I'm a pushover. I hardly ever clash head-on. The past few days had my head spinning. Mason lifted a slice of beef with his chopsticks. Taste it. I stir-fried it myself. Beef used to be my favorite, but now it tasted like cardboard. Look at you, picking that loser for years, letting people walk all over you. If I hadn't been here today, what would you have done? By the end his voice was nasal, eyes rimmed red. I wrestled with the question for a while, then mumbled, why did you say you're my fiancé? Mason glowered. His chopsticks smacked the table. What? You still want to mess around with that bastard? I shook my head hastily. No, I just thought there's someone you've always cared about. If word reaches her, I was afraid it'd hurt you. Mason said nothing, thinking for a long time. When he looked up again, his eyes were glassy. Hannah, what if I told you that someone is you? A thunderclap went off in my head. I stared at him, stunned. When we were kids, your mom and dad used to drop me at your place. I played with you every day. At first I found the little runt annoying, but then you toddled after me calling Mason, and I figured this dumpling was kind of cute. When other kids bullied you I couldn't stand it. If I didn't beat them up for you I couldn't sleep. Later I went to school in the city and counted the days till vacation. When I couldn't see you, I felt empty. Before I left for abroad I finally knew my own heart. I wanted to tell you, but Uncle forbade it. Said you were in 9th grade. Couldn't be distracted. Uncle swore to me you were too clueless to date. Told me to relax and wait. He didn't know his own daughter. First year of high school and you were already with someone. Be with me. Hannah, I'll treat you right. I used to design wedding gowns for you as a brother. Now I want to design one for you to marry me in. By the end his voice cracked. He swiped at his eyes and showed me the tattoo on his wrist. After I heard you ran off with someone, I got this ink, Sanskrit. It translates to, may Hannah's life be smooth forever. I said yes, days. To Mason, Uncle Gray and his family went to my house with bride price gifts. Dad said we should at least wait for Hannah's mom, so Uncle Gray called Mom on speaker, bought her the earliest flight, and promised to help her move the gem inventory up north. Mom hadn't expected things to move so fast. She accepted the ticket but refused his offer, saying she'd take the stock back north and open a shop, then forge me a full set of top-grade gems for a dowry chest. Mom came home in grand style. The adults gathered. In a few sentences they'd settled our wedding. Aunt Gray beamed, sliding the bracelet off her wrist onto mine. Dad was over the moon, shouting that he'd go buy me a Mercedes-Benz right now. I shook my head. I don't like Mercedes anymore. Mom grandly produced her passbook. Our family is giving $500,000 in dowry cash and a $500,000 car. Mason pressed Ferrari keys into my hand. Drive this. If you don't like it, we'll buy another. If I can't afford it, I'll take a loan. Uncle Gray wouldn't be outdone. Our bride price gifts will be double, and it all goes straight to Hannah. Mason laced his fingers through mine, smiling. What do you want? I thought it over. Mom had finally come home. I didn't want to move far after I married. When Mom heard, she dragged us all off to look at condos that very day. I roamed for 20-some years, all for my girl. Now she's starting her own family, so I'll buy a place next door and come see my grandkids. Mom had rarely been home. My feelings for her used to be shallow. Now, looking at the crow's feet around her eyes, I realized she was old. The complete family I'd always chased. Mom must have envied it too, but wanderlust ran in her blood. She refused to spend her whole life in the countryside. For me, and for herself, she carved out a success out there. We toured developments. Uncle Gray had long since bought Mason a big flat. Mom balked at the price and got a 3-bedroom in the neighboring complex. The moment we stepped out, Aunt Gray declared it was time for wedding jewelry and rings. Murphy's Law, in the boutique we bumped straight into Jade and the Sawyers. Whether they'd finally clawed their way into bed or our last encounter had spurred them on, they were picking out a wedding jewelry set too. They didn't look happy. Jade had her eye on an old-style solid gold bangle, but Mrs. Sawyer fussed that it was ugly. That girl should wear something delicate. Jade's face darkened. Chase stood like a corpse, silent. Dad whispered to Mom. Mom sized Jade up and announced loudly, "So this is the little mistress. Lucky our Hannah kicked the guy to the curb, or who knows how long this girl would have waited to buy her wedding gold." Jade paled when she saw Mom. Mom stepped closer, smiling sweetly. "Long time no see." I wondered how Mom knew Jade. She didn't answer. Aunt Gray, as if avenging me, swept up 10 gold pieces. While swiping the card she boasted that she only gets one daughter-in-law, so of course money is no object. Mrs. Sawyer tried to retort, but Jade yanked them away. Staring at the yard-long receipt, I lost control, crouched on the floor, and sobbed. I felt aggrieved, yet also freed. I had wasted 8 years on a boy who, in the end, bought another woman a bag worth tens of thousands. He decided I didn't deserve it. I had started to believe I didn't. Though Chase had money, he only ever gave me gifts that outsuited my station. The lavish romance, he gave that to someone else. But Mason gave me the very best he had. He decided I deserved everything this world could offer. Chase came looking for me. He looked haggard. Without me slaving away, most of the household burdens had landed on him. He carried a Chanel bag, asking if I could forgive him. I shook my head. He demanded to know if money mattered that much. If everyone makes mistakes, why he couldn't be forgiven. I looked at him calmly. "The moment you decided I wasn't worth that bag, we were finished. You've been drunk in front of me before. When you couldn't secure investment, you lay on the sidewalk sobbing, couldn't stand, and taxis wouldn't take you. I, to 90 pounds, carried you home on my back. Drunk mistake is just your fig leaf. You think you're rich now, think I'm not young anymore, and that even if I found out I wouldn't dare leave. We were only together 8 years, but I met my fiancé when I was 3, childhood sweethearts. Really, you were the latecomer." When I brought up the past, Chase shed tears. He clung, refusing to let me go, kneeling and begging for another chance. I found him pathetic. How could he be so dense? How had I loved this man for 8 years? Jade showed up, looking like a lost little bunny. "Chase, do you not want me anymore?" Watching her clenched fists, malice flared in me. "Chase, slap her and yell 3 times on the sidewalk that she's the homewrecker who seduced you, and I'll consider forgiving you." Jade panicked, sobbing. "Chase, don't. You know we didn't mean to. If you do this I won't be able to live. I'll kneel to Hannah, bow to her. If that reputation gets out, I don't know what I'll do." She wept bitterly, starting to kneel. Chase frowned and instinctively lifted her up. He hesitated for a long time, then rasped out a dry apology. apology. I laughed and slapped him. Then stop faking your damn devotion. No need to apologize. I was just teasing the dog. And you actually took it seriously. You really are an idiot. Chase's face froze. I walked straight past the two of them. Jade sobbed in his arms, yet her grip around him tightened. Watching the pair of them cry and kneel, I felt nothing but sweet satisfaction. The wedding day was rushed. Mom had someone pick an auspicious date, claiming it was the luckiest day. It was still the original day set for my marriage, only the groom had changed. Life is nothing if not ironic. Hasty as it was, carried me there. Mom paid top dollar for a marching band, had giant placards custom made for the bride price gifts and the dowry chest. She even called old contacts and bought a batch of fine gems, had it delicately carved, and paraded it into our bridal suite along with the rest of the dowry. Glory all around. Mason worked overtime to design a stunning princess wedding gown, studded with glittering diamonds that flashed heart-stopping light under the chandeliers. Uncle Gray personally planned the menu and slipped the chef's fat envelopes. Aunt Gray greeted guests at the door, smiling like a flower, as if in defiance. Jade set her date for the very same day, and booked the hotel directly across the street. She even sent an invitation to our house. Dad was furious and wanted to storm over and make a scene. Mom said nothing. She simply took the invitation inside. During the ceremony, Mom kept glancing at her phone, distracted. Dad got a little upset. Your daughter's big day. Why are you glued to that screen? Mom rolled her eyes. You'll understand in a minute. After the toasts, I was still in my heavy off-shoulder gown, about to sit down and demolish the feast. Mason considerately asked if the bodice was digging into my stomach. He brought several backups if I wanted something looser. I just raised a piece of prime rib to my lips when a waiter slipped in and whispered something to Mom. Mom set down her fork and asked if I felt like watching some drama. We stepped out of the hotel and saw Jade, in her wedding gown, being yanked by the hair by a bejeweled middle-aged woman who straddled her, slapping her face left and right. Homewrecker, bitch, the woman shrieked. A dozen bodyguards ringed the scene. Someone in the chaos even tugged at Jade's dress. When Jade's face had swelled into a pig's head, the woman finally stopped. A guard handed over a sealed glass bottle. The woman flipped up Jade's bridal skirt. Several others pinned her arms and legs so she couldn't move. An entire bottle of acidic liquid was poured over Jade's lower body and abdomen. Mason covered my eyes. I heard the most blood-curdling scream of my life. Inside the hotel came crashes and bangs. Guests shrieked and scattered. Chase tried to rush forward and was rewarded with two bodyguards' fists that knocked out his front teeth. Mrs. Sawyer, both shocked and enraged, suffered a heart attack on the spot. She wailed as she dialed 911. Jade, no longer recognizable, was stuffed into a trunk and driven off before the cops arrived. Mom opened her phone and deleted a contact. Years later, I learned what had happened. Jade had once waitressed in an Arizona nightclub and met a big-spending businessman based there. The man threw money around, and Jade tasted a life of champagne and limos. Then she got pregnant and pressured him to divorce and marry her. He always sidestepped the topic. Jade, less clever then, thought public opinion could force his hand and make her a trophy wife. She hired a few extras and staged a grand public proposal. It blew up locally. Trending headlines. Viral video. The man showed up only to flee in panic. Caught on camera, Jade discovered her sugar daddy was merely a kept husband, and his wife was the daughter of a powerful cartel boss from across the border. Jade fled Arizona in haste, but a bounty had been placed on her head. She lived in terror for a long time. Gradually the storm seemed to pass. Then she ran into Mom at the mall. Mom, who had dealt in gems along the Arizona-Mexico border, paid protection money to that very syndicate. She knew the boss's daughter and had once seen Jade with the man. Years had passed, and Mom wasn't sure, until Jade took one look at her, panicked, and gave herself away. Mom contacted the boss's daughter. The rest I witnessed with my own eyes. After the wedding, I never saw Jade again. Nobody knows where the daughter took her. The incident exploded into a scandal. Police issued an interstate warrant. Chase became the laughingstock of the city. Our tangled past was splashed across the tabloids. The public branded him a modern-day heartless scoundrel, morally bankrupt. His whole family rotten, deserving to be duped by a homewrecker. Mrs. Sawyer, already riddled with cancer, died from that heart attack. Mr. Sawyer lost his wife overnight and became a pariah. Whispers followed him everywhere until his mind began to crack. Business partners canceled contracts. Suppliers demanded payment before delivery. Banks called in loans. The hotel slapped him with $1 million lawsuit for damages. His company, once rising, collapsed overnight under a capital freeze. Buried by debt and scandal, Chase's hair turned white in a single night. In the years that followed, my life was happiness stacked on happiness. Dad leased out the farm farmland. He and my in-laws fought daily over grandkid duty. Little Gus would play Lego at Grandma's in the morning and be whisked away by Grandpa for barbecue by afternoon. Two lifelong friends, now old, bickering over children, mustaches quivering with indignation. What should we do? I asked. Mason grinned. Let's make another one to play with. So our daughter arrived. Both times I left the delivery room, Mason cried harder than the baby, snot bubbles and all, swearing we were done. One kid for each set of grandparents. No more tug of war. Naming her took days. In the end we chose Harper Grace. I want my daughter never to live her early years for someone else. She should blaze her own trail, free to do what she loves. Break every stereotype pinned on girls, question anything, veto anything. In a world of neon glitter, she must love herself first and foremost. Harper, why not? Why not Harper? Years later I ran into Chase again. Today is Mom's birthday. The kids are begging to hurry to Grandma's. I hit the lock button on the pink Maserati, a child on each hand, and ducked into the bakery to pick up the pre-ordered peach-shaped cake. The pink SUV drew phone cameras from passers-by. While we waited, I parked the kids on a bench and pulled out Kinder Surprise eggs. One each. No more. Harper, do not snatch your brothers. My fair, doll-like daughter pouted. Mommy, you said I can do what I want. No, Harper can't. I laughed despite myself. The imp was only 3 and already twisting logic. Who taught her sophistry? I put on a stern face. You can do what you love, but not what's wrong. Harper can is relative freedom, not absolute chaos. My 6-year-old son lifted his head timidly. It's okay, Mommy. Daddy says we should let girls go first. Let Harper win. The two kids, son like me, steady and simple, daughter like her daddy, sly spark. Mason's spoiling is turning her into a little tyrant. Tonight, I vow, bedtime will include a lecture for the 3 of them. Hannah, a hesitant, uncertain voice. I looked up. The man before me looked ready to bolt. Aged and worn, his delivery uniform hung loose. He studied me as if unable to believe this woman in custom couture. Hermes bag, Dior sunglasses, had once been his girlfriend. Both children glared, on guard. He scratched his head awkwardly. Hannah, these are your kids. Wonderful. You're doing okay these days. I regarded him calmly. Not bad. The clerk barked. Order 8546. Pick up already. Chase muttered an apology, grabbed the insulated bag, and sprinted out. I watched his retreating back and thought of the once high-flying CEO, like another lifetime. My phone buzzed. Mason. Where are you? Babe, I'm done. I'll come get you. I gave our location. 10 minutes later his Ferrari purred to the curb. 2 little cannonballs launched into their father's arms. As we left, the manager bowed. Cake in hand. Gray, give your mother my best wishes. May she have the happiest of birthdays. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Let us know in the comments where you're from. See you next time.